to Brain Balance Live, where we come together each week to help you figure out any challenges that you might be having going on with your neurodiverse children, or heck, even yourself, right, Heather?
That's right. This stuff we talk about each week applies to people of all ages.
Yep. So basically, if you're a person, we're glad you're watching.
Correct.
Cats and dogs are welcome to watch as well.
They are little furry human beings, in my opinion. I know some people would disagree with me.
Today, we are going to be talking about what, Heather?
We are going to talk about how can I rally academically this summer with my kids, but still have fun. And so many families, and rightfully so, are concerned about the loss of learning because of the pandemic. And then some kids kind of forget skills over the summer, which might mean they didn't fully have them in the first place. But I want to talk about striking a balance. It's always important to strike a balance. But man, after what parents and students have been through, we need to take a breather. We need to do the things to get our kids ready, but also enjoy downtime, because that is extremely important also.
Yes. And for those of you who haven't seen us before or are new to our program, Heather is a board certified cognitive specialist. She's also a therapist and a National Autism Summit speaker. Also, the Brain Balance program itself has now been touted as how effective it is by the likes of Cambridge and Harvard. So everything that we are coming to you with is proven to work, and you just have to keep trying. And I'm telling you, as I implement, Heather, your advice as much as I possibly can, because nobody's perfect, we've figured that out, right? But as much as I possibly can, I'm seeing growth. So if you're struggling, stick with it, right, Heather?
Yes, it is. It's hard. I know it's so hard at times, but the things we talk about, they're not anecdotal. They are evidence-based strategies that I share each week, backed by just lots and lots of research, not by like one research study.
Yes, multiple research studies. So without further ado, should we dive into this topic?
Yes. Okay, it's been a while since we've talked about family meetings, but it is pretty important to have a family meeting, even if you plan to take a week or two off after school is finally out and everyone's breathing a sigh of relief. It is important to go ahead and have a family meeting so that your kids know what to expect for the summer. This is to decrease resistance when the time comes. And I would recommend, a lot of schools are having short summers this year because of starting late and so forth. But I wouldn't wait more than a week or two. But I would have this meeting right away so that the kids know what to expect. And this also alleviates anxiety. Many of you out there know that your kids do much better knowing what to expect in advance. And so I talk about having weekly family meetings year round. And how about the next one being about how we're going to work on rallying academically while also having fun. And so when you sit down, it's a really good idea. I think this picture would be like when they're letting the kids know they're going to have the family meeting, but having a piece of paper on the wall, having a whiteboard. I know that y'all have a whiteboard at your house because Corey is very visual.
All about that whiteboard.
But ask kids, what would you like to learn this summer? Are there any ways what are the ways you'd like to grow this summer? And you are not looking for an academic answer necessarily. If they say that, then yay, you're already one step ahead of the game. And going back to our SMART Goals show, we want them to pick something they want to learn this summer, even if it is not something on mama's and daddy's lists, because they are going to grow academic skills in doing so anyway. And we'll talk about how.
Yes, and Heather also says that when we help them achieve the goals that are important to them, it strengthens the relationship, and it works, Heather.
It does work. Who knew? When they have a voice, they don't need to seek it as much inappropriately in other ways. Yes, I know they're still going to do that sometimes. I live on planet Earth, and I know the reality. But when it becomes consistent and they realize I do have some say, I do have some control, it doesn't happen overnight. But some of those battles start decreasing.
Yep.
And you're the good guy because you are going to help them accomplish something that is important to them with as much independence on their part as possible. We only cue as necessary.
Yes.
But once they have brainstormed, it's good to do this for maybe 4 or 5 minutes. Have them brainstorm and write down the things that pop in their mind that they would like to learn this summer. And by the way, the adults do this too. So, it can be, you want to read those books that have been sitting on your bookshelf for years and you never get to because you're so busy being a parent. It can be, I'm going to go take tennis. I want to become a better tennis player. Whatever it is, there's no right or wrong on this. This is what you want to do. If you do have any kids who are, this is stupid, I don't want to do this, don't argue. They're still going to sit in the family meeting. And usually as they see everyone else participating, their siblings, mom and dad, and everyone being positive and excited, they're missing out on the fun. And all of a sudden they're jumping in also. What are your top 2 goals after they've brainstormed? And so now we really get to priorities, and because we don't have time to become master of 12 things in a matter of a few weeks, usually. And I would recommend making them SMART goals. We did an entire show on SMART goals that was extremely helpful for families. Got lots and lots of feedback on that one. So I can point you in the direction of that if anyone missed that episode. But shortly, in short terms, SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. The time-bound part of this is a bit easier because we're talking about the summer. But specific, not only in what they want to accomplish, but what steps will they take to get there. And you can help them on the level necessary come up with what they would need to do each week in order to reach that goal. For example, if you have a teen who says, I want to get my driver's license by the end of the summer, they start off maybe researching where can they find practice questions, what are all the requirements, that kind of thing. Going through taking practice tests, practicing driving on mostly uninhabited roads, getting out onto highways, practicing the different parking and all of that. That each week they can have things that they're practicing. Achievable. We don't want to say, there's no way you're going to do that. Are you kidding me? I think that's obvious, but we do want to ask them, so what are the things that you have going for you to your advantage that you're going to do this summer, just in a very positive way, supporting them and helping them think through that. And sometimes they can accomplish things we might not think they could have, and they show us wrong. So we certainly don't want to squash it. We can just say, that is such an interesting goal, and it's really creative. I wonder if we might need to add on a few extra weeks to that one, and that's fine, and talk about why. It's going to be relevant because they came up with it. Why does this matter to me? That's engagement. And we talked about the time bound is already there. And so SMART goals, I have specific sheets you can Google those where you fill in. Just know that measurable, how am I going to know I am making progress toward that goal? I suggest approaching it that way and not just how am I going to know I reached the goal? Because we want to have weekly check-ins. This is the first family meeting, but then each week you're asking, how did the week go? And depending on their age and developmental level and independence level, you might have already been helping them along the path. But instead of, did you do what you said you were going to do this week? That can put kids on the defensive. Just ask them how it went. If it didn't go so great, they did not get the steps done they were planning to get done that week, what got in your way? What can I do to support you on that? So very open, very non-judgmental, building that relationship. And once they've answered things that got in their way, well, how will you approach this next week? What are some plans you have to make it work better for you next week? And so
I feel like I chronically have that problem of saying you should have done. And I know that whole should have, we try to stay away from that, right?
Yes, we want to stay away from that for ourselves and others, including our children. We don't want to say that to our spouses either. That's, just in general, should is a blaming thing. And it gets us out of solution-oriented thinking into blame and resentment. Whereas just asking these open-ended questions without judgment, there's curiosity. It's not just the words you say also, it's how you say them. We all say the word should sometimes, right? But we want to try to eliminate that from our vocabulary. We also say that to ourselves as parents. I should have done this. I should have done that.
Constantly.
Well, and then you feel guilty. And what am I doing wrong as a parent? We did a whole show on that too.
Yeah.
But yes, we want to try to stay away. You said you were going to do this. Well, now they're going to think you're calling me a liar. And now there's a fight. But when it's all positive and supportive, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So weekly team meetings. Let them know, even if you're not ready to have this meeting this Sunday, that it's coming, and that on XYZ date, we're going to each start working towards something we want to work toward. You are not having it be about math, reading, writing, etc. So it can be a hobby. It can be an interest. It can be just something they're interested in that they want to research. We must reignite the love of learning. And we've done shows on that too. But this summer, I mean, kids are absolutely worn down from a weird year. So are parents. And by setting goals, they're going to have these skills, and pursuing them, they're going to have these skills taking them into the next school year. And they're writing the steps down. They're still getting writing, and so forth. And then we're going to talk about the reading, writing, math also. But that, I think, needs to be a smaller percentage. Remember, so many, actually the majority of academic struggles have to do with complex language, not regular language, not can they carry on a conversation, complex academic language and or executive function skills. Setting and pursuing goals, you are working on time management, planning, organization, prioritizing, task initiation. They're working towards something they care about. Chemicals are released in their brain that feel good. The same kind of chemicals released with video games and stuff. And they want to feel that again. So now we're also working on motivation toward really going for it next year. Okay, let's move on.
I love that. That is such great advice.
Now, we do know that, okay, if your kids are behind, we actually in Houston ISD, a lot of schools are still going right now. Some schools have finished up for the year, but if you still have access to getting in touch with the teacher, I would ask them, what's the one thing that my child needs to work on this summer? Because sometimes if you just say, what does my child need to work on this summer? They might be like, so much. And then you might, I hope that's not the case, but I know it is in some instances. So what if you could tell me one thing they need to work on for next year, what would it be? And now you have a direction. You may already know. And I would not base that thought pattern of what you're working on benchmarks from these standardized tests, because testing for a variety of reasons is not necessarily a true indicator of where your child or teen stands on some of these skills. It's just not. So if you know the thing's great. If you don't, ask the teacher, what's that one thing? That's a really good way to do it. And so we know across the board, kids need to read every single day of all ages, whether they are in first grade or seniors in high school or college. Read 15 to 20 minutes every day. They're going to be more willing to do this if you let them pick books they want to read. Don't worry about it. If it's not on the school recommended reading list, that's fine. But sorry, that's the first time. I think
we all have to set those alarms to keep ourselves doing what we're supposed to be doing at the right times. I get it.
Yes, listen to me for having your act together. My phone just. I'm in the trenches. I make all kinds of mistakes too. But there are Amazon queries, even for reluctant readers. You can get on Amazon and put in reluctant reader, put in upper elementary, middle school, high school, boy who really likes farms. I mean, whatever it is. And you can find amazing books and see reviews and come up with books that way. I'm not saying to ignore the school list. I'm saying that's not your only go-to for that. If you want some books that really resonate with kids who are struggling, I have book lists for kids who have ADHD. When they read stories about characters, even though they're fictitious, they don't feel alone. This is a character they can relate to, and they will dive in. Kids also often respond really well to book series. There's a couple things with this. Number one, it keeps the curiosity going, and curiosity is intrinsic motivation, right? But also they have familiarity with the characters, and they have more success understanding the story because they have background knowledge taking them into the next story. So Diary of a Wimpy Kid, there are Stephen King novels. Y'all know there are just so many book series out there. Social emotional books are always fantastic. NewHarbinger.com has books that are more like workbooks where you read things and then you have some written activities to do to work through some social emotional things for older kids. For the younger kids, y'all know I love freespirit.com. But some other creative ways to work on reading are, let's say they read a story and you let them know, depending on what their interests are and their ability levels. We have, technological geniuses out there at very young ages. It's a second language for me. It's a first language for them because they're raised with it. Tell them, hey, we're going to have a family podcast, and they can conduct interviews. They can be the star of this family podcast where they're talking about the book, and you are growing language skills. You are growing so many literacy skills. You are growing comprehension. You can see where the breakdowns are. And there's just something about I'm doing a podcast and holding a microphone as opposed to just sitting there and talking about it. And it could be that they put on a play. If you want to work on writing, maybe they write a screenplay. Maybe they're really into acting and they do plays at school. Suddenly, writing isn't so bad.
Really into music, and I swear to you, we got a new piano, and he read the manual for hours.
Yes, and speaking of that, how kids can write raps, and they can.
Yeah.
I know rap music that has a bad connotation. We don't have to have that. There's a certain kind of rap you don't want your kids writing. You can write raps about anything, and you're working on rhythm and timing that also helps them sound out words and notice pauses and periods and all of these inflections and things that change the meaning of what they're hearing. Those are called metalinguistic overlays. So writing raps, you got that rhythm and timing. That is still writing. By the way, if they're super reluctant, this is not my favorite tip, but it's out there. I'm trying to make this really doable for y'all. There is even research out of Oxford University that reading the captions on TV shows does improve reading ability. So
I've heard that before. Turn off the sound and make them read.
It's true. It's true. Please don't do this instead of reading books. But you could tell your kids you can watch 1 hour of TV without subtitles or 2 hours with, and they're reading it. Yeah. So that is a tip. If you're just like, how do I make this doable? There's one for you.
Yeah, that works for sure.
And think about project-based learning. If kids struggled at doing remote or online learning, if they're struggling with their homework, even with in-person class, it's very nice that schools sometimes give homework packets over the summer. And there's nothing wrong with those. They can be very helpful for a lot of students. But if you know they are not helping your student engage in project-based learning, hands-on, maybe like this guy in this picture, he wants to build a computer over the summer. He can still write down the steps he's doing. He can still put together a slideshow or video blog or something of how he did it along the way. He is writing his script. He's going to read it to create that video blog. He's still getting reading and writing in there, and it's hands-on, something he was interested in. Think outside the box. This is fun, and you are still working on executive functions and literacy and language, which literacy is based on language. And the other, speaking of working the executive functions, I highly recommend having kids put in the planner when they are going to have each stage of a project done and what steps go into that stage. So not just the due date of the end of the summer, but by next week, I'm going to have this part done. So working backwards from there, what are they going to do each day toward that? You are teaching them how to manage their time when they go back to school and they have a paper due in 6 weeks. They've had practice thinking about many due dates along the way, and you celebrate the progress along the way. It is not just at the end. Kids must feel good and feel this reward release from progress. Even if they fall short and they made progress, you show them how much further they came. And then you adjust the time on the goal. So that's why I have the planner there. There is no such thing as what is the best planner. That is extremely individualized. I do recommend ask kids. Kids will pick planners based on a cool cover. It's my favorite color. It has my favorite movie character on there. It's going to be something usually other than this is how my brain works, and it's going to keep me organized.
Yeah.
So find out, when they pick out a planner, say, tell me why you picked this planner. And then think about what their strengths and weaknesses are and look at how it's laid out. And is it truly going to be the one to help them the most? But you can even print out planner pages online, even if you don't have a bound planner yet, but they're still getting the concept of how you put things in there. By the way, equilibrium, body awareness, visual perception issues, anything that messes with my visual spatial concepts can make using a planner very hard. And so they need practice with this. Having this written here, how does that relate to time? Some kids don't get that. It requires executive function to use a planner, and it's so much better to practice that when the stakes aren't as high during the summer.
Is there a difference between using something that's on a smart device or a phone or an iPad versus a physical planner that you have to actually write in?
Well, there has been quite a bit of research about touch screens and how that is resulting in decreased fine motor abilities. But if they are typing on the computer, you're using fine motor. But we know that we need visual motor integration. And if you're a good typist, you're not looking at your fingers when you type. And so you are not so much using your eyes and your fine motor together. And that is a skill we need all the time. Okay. So I prefer old school, but online planners are better than no planners at all. They're not evil. It's just that if your kids have visual motor integration challenges, if they get called sloppy, if they seem quote unquote lazy with how they do their work, I would recommend a paper planner, because that way you're getting practice and skill. When you're practicing sensory motor activities this summer, even when it's outdoors playing, you are working on academics for the fall, but then that translates into the fine motor also. That was a great question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
On the left side here, I just have some examples of one of the coolest things is John Spencer. I'm on his weekly email list. He is just an out-of-the-box educator, and he has a YouTube channel. You can go to YouTube and just type in John Spencer writing prompts, and his channel will pop up, and he has these videos with these really fun stories, and then the kids write an ending to the story. That makes writing fun, and they get to be creative. He has so many of those. Kids love these. They're really cool. And then I know I say it a lot, but journaling is fantastic. When kids are allowed to write about whatever they want, it can really decrease writing anxiety. Instead of asking them to write an essay, write about whatever they want. And we already know, of course, that's literacy, and it's hand-eye coordination, all these sensory skills that they need, social emotional development. So many answers come to us. It forces your brain to slow down and think through things. It's like talking to a best friend and having these aha moments, these breakthroughs socially, emotionally. But notice that I have one that's a mother-daughter journal. I just had different examples. Guys journal too. There are even really cool sporty looking ones for girls or guys. I mean, find one that fits their personality. You're never too young to journal. For little ones, it can be drawing pictures. It can be doing scrapbooks and writing captions under the things you do this summer. That is still in them reading back through it. You are working on their sense of self, autobiographical memory, along with all these literacy skills and fine motor and visual. But the mother-daughter journal or father-dad or whatever combination it is, the idea here is that if kids are having a journal and it's private, keep it private. But you can also have one where you might write a comment or a question to your child or teen and say, man, I really liked how you planned ahead for your driving test. You know, what made you think of going to this resource, You just, something positive that they've done. I really appreciated how much empathy you showed your little sister when she was tagging along with you. You wanted to be with your friends, whatever. Make a comment, ask a question, and then they can write back to you. And that is a really cool exchange. It doesn't take the place of verbal communication, but this is great also if kids are kind of shut down. We have kids who get overwhelmed with the act of talking in person because they spend so much time on text, and they have time to pause and think about their answers before they text, and then you can erase it and keep getting it right. But doing this little quick thing before bedtime, it doesn't get the mind churning, and they can start also associating writing with relaxation because it's as they're winding down for bed, and it's a nice way to round out the day. So lots of just out of the box ways to think about writing, having kids draw stories of a picture on an easel board and retell you the story, acting it out. Just be creative, make it so fun. And that way they don't feel that they're in school, but you are preparing them for next year.
I love that.
All right, we can move on. And just to hit the point home, anytime they are exercising, it is sending messages through 200 million neurons are firing off all over the brain to improve focus, processing, learning, reading, math, vocabulary, emotional regulation. And a couple of examples here where they're doing a scavenger hunt or doing things outside and connecting the dots for tic-tac-toe or outdoor bingo scavenger hunt. They are exploring. They are getting lots of sensory information, motor movement, a lot of matching because it also expands horizons because I might see a flower and realize, there are yellow flowers, there are pink, there are red, but they are still all flowers. It helps kids start understanding big picture and details. It makes walks really fun. Go on a listening walk. Name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell, 2 things you can touch, and on down the road. Anything where make the outdoor activity fun also. Okay. That's just to think about being outdoors. And if I don't want to go for a walk, but there are things that we can do to up the ante, creating outdoor obstacle courses, just so many things. They need to be moving every day.
I love that. Oh, this looks like so much fun.
Yes, how fun is an outdoor scavenger hunt or something like that? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And just other ideas. If all of these improve the brain, period, because our goal is to improve and increase the communication and processing between the left and right sides of the brain, the front and the back of the brain, which is what we do when we exercise. The motor movement helps all of our executive function skills, attention, problem solving, and so forth. But take a screenshot of this if anybody wants other ideas. If you have kids diagnosed with dyslexia, they really have been struggling academically since pre-K, kindergarten, first grade. You might want to lean a little, all of these activities are good for any kid. You might want to lean a little more towards getting some ideas from the left side of this slide. In the right side, you see lots of getting your hands dirty, a lot of big gross motor movements, because those are right hemisphere skills, although it's really about the whole brain communicating and processing with one another. But don't overschedule them. They need downtime. Summer camps are great. We also have kids who have lost some of their social emotional skills during this time too. We've had quite a few of our kids with anxiety saying, I don't really want to re-engage with people. Who can they continue to stay in touch with from school? If you can find out anyone who's going to be in their class next year and set up some times for them to spend together, that's just one less thing that's new when school starts back. We will do some more getting ready for school as the new school year approaches. But I just really put this up so you can take a screenshot of it. Remember that even playing board games, you can work on math skills, Monopoly. Let the child who's struggling in math count the money. Let keep track in who has the most points, whether you're playing spades or whatever it is. Play memory. You are working on memory, visual. Does this match or does it not? As far as visual perception, any game you play, cooking. Let's see. I think we should also make some of these peanut bars for our neighbors. And see, 4 people live in that house, so have them do math to figure out how they need to adjust the recipe to have enough for everyone, and how many cookies or food bars would that give everyone. Find ways to incorporate it all along the way. When you're gardening, you're teaching cause and effect. They're working on planning. They're following steps to see a bigger picture. But I'm trying to show you that you can really work on the skills they need and make it super fun. But reading every day, even if they're excellent readers, every year school takes it up a notch, and this year's going to feel like a big leap. Okay. And then I wanted to share a few resources that I can't see right now. Teachers, I haven't been able to see any of these slides, but I just knew what they were.
Wow, that's impressive.
TeachersPayTeachers.com. Most of these resources are made by either like speech language pathologists or teachers or sometimes school counselors very inexpensive. There's lots of free downloads there where you can work on, even with math, I would try to keep it kind of focused. Just work on addition, subtraction, just work on multiplication, division, just work on decimals, fractions, percentages. You're working on fluency. Think about with math also, try to make it something where, okay, maybe they're doing it for 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and it's something that they are relatively successful on independently. You need a break, and it's going to help your relationship. If you have to step in, sometimes that's fine, but if they are having meltdowns over the work they're working on, it's probably too advanced for them. We're just working on automaticity this year. Later on in the summer, I'll talk about how we've been doing a review. Now let's preview what's coming up in the following year. But right now, beginning of the summer, we're reviewing concepts from this past year. This is, I shared John Spencer, the YouTube, but here is his website. You can also get some things in that way. NoWriting.com customizes writing activities to student interest. Another really cool website for writing that makes it fun. Scholastic.com, very good way to work on language arts. And if you have kids who are really into language arts, they get to interact with the authors, which is very interesting for them. BrainPop.com, it's for kids under 5th grade, but there is a version for kids under 5th grade. This one goes all the way through high school, though. And you can see, even if they want to work on coding, if that's one of their goals this year, things that are out of the box. I've mentioned before, STEAM Powered Family has all kinds of really cool science experiments, which would be project-based learning for this summer. Academics, that is not a typo. Think of arcade game plus academics. It's a mishmash word there. Video game format to practice math with younger learners. They love it because it feels like a video game, but they're actually learning. IXL.com has a bunch of subjects. A lot of my colleagues and I believe that they're strongest in math. And the nice thing about this is you can put in your grade level, put in algebra, geometry, whatever it is, and they can do a few problems, and their software is intuitive, and they see where the breakdowns are and what the kids are struggling with. That way you don't have to try to figure it out, and it starts giving them questions and support and guidance on the things that they need to work on.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Very, very cool. FamilyEducation.com, some fun crafts to do this summer, which will also help with that sensory motor work, which happens first before cognition grows. MarkMyTime.com, there is a bookmark style timer for reading, and lots of character choices, and it will log reading time until you erase it. So you can make sure kids kind of seeing that number go up is another little motivator for them, right?
Yes.
One other tip I'll say is that, of course, y'all have heard me talk about timers before, setting timers for the amount of time they're going to work on math or reading. But you can also, if you have kids sitting there doing nothing, you can say it's for 15 minutes or X number of problems, whichever comes last. So you can have it. You don't want to say first because then they might rush through it. If you see kids rushing, you're going to tell them that regardless of how quickly you get this done, we are doing this work for 15, 20 minutes, whatever y'all decide to do a day. I really wouldn't go over 20 minutes. And this is on top of the goals they set that are goals they want to work on this summer. And so you're going to read a book, you're going to give them other things to do. So then that is really effective in getting kids to not just rush through to be done.
I love that. We have that problem for sure.
Yes. All right. I tried to make this light because everyone needs a break, but here's even those goals that we started with are growing skills they need in school: planning, time management, organization, all these executive function abilities, and they're writing them out. So a lot of communication around that. So you're growing the skills they need that will help them in all the subjects.
I love that. Actually, today was such great advice. I'm definitely going to go back and rewatch and look at all these slides again because I feel like so much of it was extremely valuable. If you're seeing this on the replay and you have any questions or comments, please, please, please feel free to write those in there. Heather always checks those. She always checks on her at The Hidden Churn there. You can follow her there on Facebook and Instagram. You can see all the Brain Balance locations there. Is there anything else that you want to let people know is going on?
Thursday at 3:35. Dr. Brian and I will be back again for a Facebook Live episode. And I hope you all have a great week.
Amazing. All right. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks, everyone. Bye.